age concern and breakthrough breast cancer, I know what it's like trying to campaign for extra resources and funding for the most vulnerable in our community. NHS England has a 5-year plan to pull forward view, and that's what the Conservative Party wants to fund, and it's going to cost about £8 billion. We were the only party at the last election to ring-fence NHS funding. It wasn't Labour, it was us. And we were able to reach that about, I think it was just over 7 billion. So we've got a clear plan that will enable us to deliver NHS's own plan for the next 5 years. Having worked for a charity that deals with older people and having worked for a charity that deals with cancer, my priorities would be tackling cancer-related diseases, and also looking at illnesses that revolve around long-term care of the elderly. Walden has the highest level of 85-year-olds in any constituency in the country, and we've got to understand how that will impact our National Health Service. We can only fund it if we're bringing in revenue from having a strong economy. One of the other issues we need to remember is, before people begin to politicise the National Health Service, that our doctors and nurses do a great job, and from an independent survey done on the National Health Service, that over 90% of people are absolutely satisfied with the health that they receive.
Thank you.
Well, I think what I was going to say is that I met someone the other day, an elderly gentleman, who was actually alive before the NHS was created. He's from Wilton, voted Conservative for the last 50 years, and said, "Go on, Solomon, give them a shake-up and you can have my last vote." I hope it's not his last vote, but I'm grateful to him. And this talks about taking the politics out of the NHS, and I would agree with her if the Conservatives came on board with what we were saying and took out the privatisation of the NHS as well. And I know what Liz will say. She'll say that it was Labour who introduced it, and probably so, and again, I say let's look to the future. I want to end privatisation in the NHS. I believe that we can do better with the NHS. 20,000 more nurses, 8,000 more doctors. We released our manifesto today. It's fully funded. As Peter said, there's no extra borrowing. This is a Labour Party which I really believe has changed. No extra borrowing, everything committed, everything funded for, by introducing a mansion tax on the properties with the highest value, by raising the tax rate to 50p. And Peter's right again. I never thought I'd say that twice, but he's right about integrated. We've got one of the most sort of fragmented systems that we've seen in a long time. And it was the Conservatives who said we weren't going to do the big top-down reorganisation of the NHS, and they did it. And Nus says that the doctors, the nurses do a great job. I believe that, because I go and talk to them, and they will tell you that we need to get rid of this government so that their jobs can be a lot easier. I have a mum who worked in the NHS. I only have one mum, but my mum worked in the NHS, and we created it 70 years ago, and we'll protect it if you get us into government, and I'll vote for getting rid of privatisations in the NHS as your MP.
Thank you. There's a big desire amongst communities that decisions should be made locally. But when decisions are made locally, a constituency like Wilden loses out. It's a big constituency with a small population, and it doesn't seem to hit all those demographic factors that requires it to have attention, because it seems to do okay. So a place like Wilden tends to have a smaller voice when it's competing with Eastbourne or Hastings. I've been campaigning for over a year alongside the mums of the Crosslink Hospital, and if I'm elected as your MP, I'll continue to campaign on their behalf. I must try and challenge two of the stats that were thrown out by the panel today, because, I'm new to politics. I've always been on the outside of politics, knocking on the door of Westminster trying to increase resources or funding or raising the voices of the most vulnerable. And one thing I find incredibly frustrating is when people throw out facts and figures that aren't accurate. There were 5% of partnerships were private under Labour, and they've gone up by 1.5%, and they're now at 6.5%. So they've not gone up by a massive amount. And I might lose half the room by saying this, but I'm going to be absolutely frank. What matters to me is that we have the best healthcare, and it's always free at the point of delivery. And that's what we need to prioritise, and not stop playing politics, but make sure that's what we are doing. And I know Solomon was talking about, just one more point. Solomon was talking about, let's not talk about the past, let's talk about the future. Two things that we're going to do to challenge what Labour did in the past is making sure that GPs are open for over 7 days,
Nus, I've asked you.
Open 7 days a week.
Nus, I've asked you to stop, please. Solomon?
Can I bring your mic? I think we should have the countdown clock for panelists. That'd be far more exciting, wouldn't it? Thank you. As you know, don't work in the NHS, but when I speak to people who work in, they are worried about how we protect these services. A big part of, I think, reshaping our NHS is about bringing back this idea of local care. Too many people are going to A&E for problems which could actually be sorted out by your GP. Nus actually made a good point about it's about the quality of care as well, and I can only praise people like Nus and Cancer who have looked after members of or previous members of my family who do a fantastic job. But the idea that in our National Health Service people make profit from illness makes me, I want to say, sick. I don't know if that's too far to go, but it makes me feel really ill. So I think there's a moral element about they may provide a good service, but let's get the profit out of the NHS, and that's what we'll do.
Solomon, thank you.